right, good evening, everyone. We'll call the Council Planning Committee meeting to order, and any disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. Seeing none, reading and confirmation of the minutes, resolution at the minutes of the Council Planning Committee meeting held on February 5th, 2024 be approved. Councillor Alsop, second by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I've got some opening remarks. The public meeting is being heard by the Council Planning Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The citizen appointees joining are Mr. Tyler Fenton and Mr. Paul Jennings. They may ask questions and participate in the discussion to assist in recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Planning Committee or City Council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council or the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Belleville before the related bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Comments received at this public meeting, as well as written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in the analysis of the applications that were part of the public meeting tonight. For further information on how to provide comments to the City regarding an application from this public meeting, please email planning@belleville.ca. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future. Any persons wishing to be advised of the Council Planning Committee's recommendations regarding today's applications are requested to leave their name and address on the appropriate notification sheet on the clipboard beside the podium. With that, we'll move into the public meeting portion. 5.1, Notice of Complete Application and Introductory Public Meeting for Proposed Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Bylaw 3014, 1693 Casey Road, City Belleville. Owner applicant is Clayton Fairman. File number is B-77-1204. If staff could present the application, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. 1693 Casey Road is located directly northwest of the Casey Road and Craig Road intersection and immediately west of Tyendinaga Township. Consent application B1423 was approved on August 2023 to sever one residential lot on the west side of the subject land for construction of a single detached dwelling. This application proposes to rezone the severed parcel to a site-specific rural residential zone. A special provision is required to recognize the reduced lot frontage of 34 meters for the severed parcel. The official plan designation of the subject land is rural land use and environmental protection. And at this time, staff have not received any correspondence from the public regarding this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? And a third time? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? And a second time? And a third time? No, okay. Resolution is the Clayton Fairman application B-77-1204 be referred to the regular Planning Advisory Committee meeting for consideration. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Alsop. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 5.2, Notice of Complete Application and Introductory Public Meeting for Proposed Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment, 699 Dundas Street West, City of Belleville. Owner is 793-9191 Canada Incorporated. Applicant is RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated. File number is B-77-1206 and PLOZA 202-40005. If staff could present the application, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The application for the subject lands are located on south side of Dundas Street West, between Wellbridge Loyalist Road and the CP Rail overpass. The property is currently developed with a one-story office building, and also there is a boathouse and associated Quonset hut located adjacent to the shoreline of the Bay of Quinte. The applications before the committee tonight are firstly to amend the official plan on the subject property. The current official plan designates the property into 3 different categories: employment land near the road where the existing office building is developed, community facility in the mid portion of the property, and environmental protection along the shoreline of the Bay of Quinte. The application seeks approval to redesignate the middle portion from community facility to employment area in order to facilitate the development of a second office building on the property, along with associated parking area. Similarly, the rezoning application is before the committee because the northern part of the property is currently in a commercial CH-17 zone. The middle portion of the property is in an H-4, which is a holding zone, and then environmental protection along the bay. The rezoning application similarly seeks to amend the H4 holding zone to a compatible commercial zone to correspond with the commercial zoning along Dundas Street West and to allow for this redevelopment. To date, the staff has received comment from a property owner across the street advising that they don't have any objections to the application as presented. And I think that's where things are at this point.
Okay.
Back to you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application?
Good afternoon. I'm Spencer Hutchison, a planner with RFA Planning Consultant in Belleville. And beside me is the proponent owner, which we'll get to in a second. This is a really good news story for the city of Belleville because what this firm does is kind of amazing. And I used to pass it twice a day and look at the brick building and not understand what's going on. But it is quite exciting. I believe you have a PowerPoint presentation and paper copy, and if someone could lend us a little bit of a technical assistance to call up.
Sorry.
No, please, thank you.
So
Yep.
is this one your
Yep.
presentation?
Oh, looks good, yep, thank you for finding it. Excellent. So there is a site plan, and we'll get to it in a moment. Basically, as Greg explained, to the north is the existing office building. In the middle of the property is the proposed office building. So applicant owner, I'll let him, Peter, tell you what he does.
Thank you. I'm the face of 7939-191 Canada Inc., the CEO of EMS Tech, and excited to be able to expand in Belleville. We've been a resident business of Belleville since 1988. Our first office was in the Maze Mall on Front Street, and we've grown from there to where we are now. We are an international business. We've been operating internationally since the onset of our business, through a bit of luck and successful completion of projects. We currently have 100 employees, 88 of which live in the Belleville area, and our community of course benefits from those high quality technical jobs and support people we have. We're currently in an expansion mode, having recently opened offices in the Netherlands and in Brisbane in Australia. We have a very active satellite office in Wuxi, China, which provides technical services to a lot of the fabricating facilities and shipyards where a lot of our work is executed. We have 15 very good engineers in China as well. I believe that we're the largest employer of professional engineers in Hastings County, and which is something from a company that started with just 1 or 2 guys to be where we are today has been pretty exciting. We need to increase our office space. We've decided to have our technical center in an HQ. Our HQ is in Belleville because this is where our core competency lives and wants to stay. There's been suggestions that in our business we should look at larger cities for access to labor, but our people just love Belleville, want to stay here. We want to stay here and continue to grow. We're bursting at the seams a little bit in our office, Spencer, or in the application, you notice there was a trailer associated with our office, and part of our application will be during the build phase, we'll probably have a couple more trailers, or wish to have a couple more trailers. I'm looking forward to your approval so that we can go to the next steps with our building and expansion plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. And just to confirm his last bullet point, what do? Bulk material handling systems for self-unloading ships, marine ports, and mining operations, headquartered in Belleville. I'm going to do the planning part. I'll go whip through this as fast as I can. It was already referenced, there's split zoning and split OP designation. So at one simple stage, we just wanted all employment so that the second office building could be built. No desire, no interest to touch anything near the waterfront. That's off bounds. We're just dealing with the high land behind the office building. The property is 1.92 hectares. So as we've said, existing office building for the applicant. There's a temporary overflow office trailer. That's the white rectangle in the top northeast corner. There's one entrance from Dundas West, and there's parking behind the existing building and visitor parking beside the building. And then from the back, as you can see on the sort of air photo, all the way down to the south to the Bay of Quinte is just open space with scrub vegetation. As referenced, the boathouse and Quonset hut have been there forever and a day, and at one point it was used by a rowing club. And the abutting house to the west, the converted house, has been in many uses and is owned and operated as part of office overflow for Peter's business, and that will be consolidated into the new office building, and that building will eventually be repurposed. So the proposed plan, second office building to the south of the existing, 2 stories, approximately 1,200 square meters. We're now looking at 2 driveways from Dundas Street West on the east side and west side, and closing the middle existing driveway. 157 parking spaces, 6 for accessible, 10 bicycle parking spots. We're on municipal water. Unfortunately, at the time being, we have to do our own private septic system. Through the diligence of the city staff, we were wrangled into putting land for a waterfront trail running east to west. And if you notice on the map, 2 dashed lines running across the property. Through the site plan process, that will be incorporated at a trail at some future point going east and west, but we're providing the land for the connection across this property. And there's no change to the 2 buildings beside the water. Provincial policy statement, I'm just going to say it meets it. You guys can read it all, it's hot air. The official plan, basically split designation, community facility at the back. We just want to make it employment so we can build a second building, not touching the environmental. Again, municipal water, no municipal sewer. Zoning bylaw, repetition, split zoning. The back is holding. Probably in an hour or 2 from now, CH17H will probably disappear into the new world of Belleville planning, but that's all good news as well. The current CH17 permits the site to be used for employment uses, 2 office buildings. And then I referenced the passing of the new bylaw, and the new bylaw C3 zone, this site plan meets all the setbacks, requirements, regulations. Servicing, and we would just like to flag this. Unfortunately, at this hour, Dundas Street West from the overhead bridge to Loyalist Wallbridge is not serviced with sewer. We would all like it to be. we have water but not sewer. My understanding is the city council a couple years ago in the budget put money for designing this sewer. I don't believe it's been undertaken yet. And then it's been quiet in terms of implementation. Peter's company is going to have to build a private on-site septic system at a cost that he really doesn't want to. So he would like to start the discussion of, figuring out if we can get a way to get a sewer out there with his contribution and others, paying property-owned lands to the west that's vacant and stuff. So separate to this planning, I mean, we can still proceed with the septic system, but at the end of the day, for all concerned, it'd be better to have preferable municipal sewer. Basically, hopefully that was a quick summary of a second office building behind the first to allow him to, Peter, to locate all his employees on one site. Thank you, and we'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Any questions from committee members? Councillor Alsop.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question to Mr. Sorensen regarding the new office building. I noticed you were putting in for 157 parking spots. How many people do you expect would work in the new building and in the existing building combined?
We're hoping to pull all of our staff into the new building. There's some upgrades required to the existing building at 699. We would be upgrading and using that as an expansion, place where we can expand to. We're anticipating 125, that's sort of what's in our vision, but we've stated numbers higher than that to give us somewhere to go.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Millette, did I see your hand?
Yeah,
Your microphone, sir.
yeah, I just had one quick question that was partially answered by Councillor Alsop's question. The house to the west, I guess, that you're utilizing now as partial office space, so you're utilizing, as I recall and seeing it, you've got kind of an ATCO trailer out there.
Yeah.
You're using one of those
Yes.
as temporary space, and the house to the
Same,
west?
Same.
Okay, so you'll eliminate the need for these trailers then with this new building?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. The quality of the workspace, both in the trailer and in the house, we've made it adequate, but it's not at an international professional level that we'd like to see all our people
Yeah, and
working out of.
If I may, I think the building itself that you're using, was that not formerly a photo, a framing gallery?
Yes, I think the office was partitioned into two
Yeah.
offices. One was a picture framing, and
Yep.
then I think there was a computer software company.
That's
in
it,
there.
yeah. So, by the sounds of your corporation and the professionalism it is now, I think it's high time you got a building to fit the professionalism of your company. And I congratulate you and EMS Tech for the success of the company, and I'm happy to support this, so thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I just would also lend my support for this, and I'm a neighbor on Dundas Street, my business as well, and I've often wondered what went on at your place. So this is fabulous, and it's a really good feel story, a good news story, and thank you for choosing Belleville to enlarge your portfolio and your company, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Sorensen.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Thank you very much.
Can I make one comment, not to do with this file, because I'm not gonna stay around? I want to congratulate the city and staff for the new zoning bylaw that is coming forth later tonight. As someone who suffered through 3 zoning bylaws that dated back, it's long overdue. It's a well-drafted document. I give credit to staff, and I believe Thomas led the charge. He's done an amazing job. I'm gonna say it's not gonna be perfect because it's 212 maps and everything else. It's a lot of things to cover and make sure, but I think they made a damn good try, and I look forward in about 5 weeks to use a new zoning bylaw.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Third time. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? And a second time, and a third time. Seeing none, I have a resolution that the 7939191 Canada Incorporated application B-77-1206 and PLO ZA 2024005 be referred to the regular planning advisory committee meeting for consideration. Councillor Alsop, second by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 5.3, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014, 149 Deniers Road, City of Belleville. Owner applicant is Marcus Sullivan. File number is B-77-1210. If staff could present the application, please.
Sure. The property is located on the south side of Dennis Road, north side of Highway 37, and west of Ladder Drive, known municipally as 149 Dennis Road. Consent application B16/22 granted approval to sever one residential lot from the subject land. As a condition of consent, this application proposes to rezone the severed lot from rural zone to rural residential zone. No rezoning is proposed for the retained portion of the subject land. The official plan designation of the subject land is rural land use, agricultural land use, and environmental protection. At this time, staff have received no correspondence from the public regarding this application. Thanks. Back to you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? You come forward, state your name, just activate the microphone there.
My name is Elaine Collier and my husband Adrian Collier. We own the land adjacent to Marcus on the east side, and we are in full support of this amendment, and we'd certainly like to see it go through. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Third time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Second time and third time. Seeing none, resolution that the Marcus Sullivan application B-77-1210 be referred to the regular planning advisory committee meeting for consideration. Councillor Millette, Councillor Enright Miller, all in favor? That's carried. And I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Enright Miller, Councillor Brown, all in favor? That's carried. And we'll go to the next portion of the meeting. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, reading and confirmation of the minutes of the council planning, oh wait, make sure I'm on the right one here. Bear with me, there we go. Minutes of the planning advisory committee meeting held February 5th, 2024 be approved. Councillor Millette, Councillor Enright Miller, all in favor, that's carried, thank you. No deputations, correspondence, all correspondence received by the clerk's office in relation to agenda applications be received. Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Alsop, all in favor, that's carried. Referrals from the public meeting, 6.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014, 1693 Casey Road, City of Belleville, owners Clayton Fairman, file number is B-77-1204. Resolution reads that report number APS-2024-08 dated March 4th, 2024, regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014, 1693 Casey Road, City of Belleville be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Councillor Brown, second by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. 6.2, notice of complete application and introductory to public meeting for proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment 699 Dundas Street West, City of Belleville. Owner is 793-9191 Canada Incorporated. Applicant is RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated, and the file number is B-77-1206 and PLO ZA 2024006. Resolution reads that report number APS-2024-09 dated March 4th, 2024 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment 699 Dundas Street West, City of Belleville, be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Councilor Wright Miller, seconded by Mr. Fenton. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. 6.3, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014, 149 Deniers Road, City of Belleville. Owners Marcus Sullivan. File number is B-77-1210. Resolution reads that report number APS-2024-10 dated March 4th, 2024 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014, 149 Deniers Road, City of Belleville, be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, addressed, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Councilor Brown, second by Councilor Alsop. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Moving on to reports. 7.1, staff recommendation report for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014, 287 Kelly Road, City of Belleville. Owner applicant is Chuck Kelly. File number is B-77-1205. Resolution that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That application B-77-1205 to amend the City of Belleville zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended for 287 Kelly Road, City of Belleville, be approved as follows. That zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning the severed lots on the subject land from rural RU19 zone to rural residential RR zone, and that a bylaw be brought forward following the passing of the new comprehensive zoning bylaw to reflect this amendment as applicable in the text and schedules of the new comprehensive zoning bylaw. Moved by Councilor Alsop, seconded by Councilor Wright Miller. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. 7.2, update to approved street name list. File numbers B-65. Resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to Council that the list of proposed street names included in attachment 3 to this report, APS-2024-13, be added to the existing list of approved names. Moved by Councilor Wright Miller, seconded by Councilor Millette. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. 7.3, recommendation report, new draft consolidated zoning bylaw, City of Belleville. File number is consolidated zoning bylaw. And before we put the resolution forward, do we have a presentation?
Just a few comments too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tom's getting ready for his presentation. Just wanted to sort of, emphasize how important this project is for the city. So this bylaw is a new zoning bylaw before PAC. It is no small accomplishment. It's been a monumental process. It'll set the base for us to be adaptable and move forward while we address current and emerging issues and opportunities into the future. We started the process in 2018. The new official plan was underway at the time, and the existing zoning bylaws were, I believe, over 40 years of age. And so I think it's important to sort of understand that, because they carried forward older language. That was probably from the previous zoning bylaws of the city and or other municipalities, so it's sort of the King's English, which is, now we have a new king, but it was the old king probably at the time. So, I mean, there were definitions when I remember getting here, and there were definitions that I was sort of scratching my head at that were no longer, existed. There were specific words that basically required web searches to determine if the word was allowing something or prohibiting something, the way that it was worded. The goal really was to start this project because there was a ton of work to be done. So we wanted to start the work in advance of the official plan. So we wanted to make sure that when the official plan was in a form that the province was going to approve, we could take the background work and then work more intensively on finalizing the zoning bylaw. And that's really partly because the zoning bylaw needs to implement the new official plan. So, and then although the official plan was adopted by council in October 2021, the minister's final approval didn't occur till April 11th, 2023. And I think because the city chose to undertake both the new official plan and the new zoning bylaw simultaneously, which allowed the projects to overlap, it's important to sort of recognize that we have a new zoning bylaw in front of the city for consideration of approval only 11 months after the minister's almost final approval of our new official plan. And the city, if the city chose to undertake the zoning bylaw in the traditional manner that other municipalities do, the city would have waited until the new official plan was approved in 2023. Then they would have considered approving budget for the new zoning bylaw in the 2024 budget, maybe the 2025 budget. And if this was the case, we could expect a new zoning bylaw would still be years away because of the extremely large scope of work required to take 3 really old documents into one new modern document. So the original vision for the new zoning bylaw was a simplified document that we would be able to understand, that would be able to be understood by the public as well as the development industry. So when we start, the issues around housing were starting to be discussed, and this bylaw that has now 3 urban residential zones has created the opportunity for allowing housing to be built to meet the province's targets. This simplification really, I think it really makes us a leader in Ontario. But now we can take the next step and look at future opportunities for even more residential development opportunities. So I don't think we can rest on our laurels, even though the ink hasn't dried, council hasn't approved. Like, we've already identified future intensification opportunities. That was submitted as part of our Housing Accelerator Fund. Unfortunately, the city didn't receive the Housing Accelerator Fund, but the city in-house is going to prioritize making sure that we look at the zoning bylaw and see if there's more opportunities for, more residential development. So I think it's also important, and then I think past employee Spencer Hutchison there spoke about, not necessarily being you can never come up with a perfect document, because if you did, we could still be here 10 years from now with, a document that hasn't been brought forward to you. So you have to make that decision to move forward and to make sure that it's a document that we monitor what's working well, what's not working well, and we'll bring forward those amendments. Like, we're not going to wait 40 years to bring forward amendments. It's going to be a constantly evolving document, and I think this will allow us to look forward to a future of innovation with different residential building types that we haven't even considered, as well as economic opportunities for the commercial and residential development that's going to go. Just wanted to recognize that Tom was the project manager for this new zoning bylaw, and he worked diligently, and there was a large time while we were short-staffed, and he balanced other demands of the position, such as bringing forward development applications. He also utilized the work and assistance of other staff and led the extensive public consultation that occurred. And so with that, I just wanted to thank Tom for his work and contributions, and turn it over for him for his presentation.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, to put it lightly, it was a major project. I think at the public meeting on September 5th, our consultants on the project, Dillon Consulting, they gave a good overview on what some of the work that went into that. Since then, we've went further into that, and we've really dived into public feedback. Feedback we've received through other applications that we've then incorporated into the bylaw, whether that's minor variance applications, rezoning applications, recent changes at the provincial level, whether it's, the Bill 23, Bill 108, Bill 109, and incorporating those changes. And then obviously the recent, maybe it's been around a little longer, but the housing need that we have in our community. So I'm not going to go through everything that changed. I think my report outlined a lot of the major changes. I tried to condense that into memos, but essentially, as Stephen outlined, this graphic really shows what we did. It's combining 3 extremely old documents that were dated. They were not serving our community as well as they could. They resulted in many applications for the public to submit and be reviewed, costing them money, costing development time, and we're able to hopefully clean that up through this new consolidated zoning bylaw, reducing the red tape for development in our community. So, as Stephen mentioned, there was an extensive public engagement process to this. We held 4 public information meetings where we set up boards, held meetings with the public for hours, taking in their comments, discussing it with them. At no point at these meetings were the policies set. We were still, ears open, listening in on what they had to say. Early on in the project process, we identified a number of hot button issues. I think that's been kind of well documented and well discussed at the September 5th meeting, one of them being RVs. So we did do additional consultation. We hired Planning Solutions to help us with that. We held 4 public meetings as well on RVs, boats and trailers, backyard chickens, shipping containers, and oh boy, I'm forgetting the 4th one. And then of course, we had the statutory public meeting on September 5th. That was the big proposal of the initial draft. From that, we didn't really stop. We dived right back into it. I think the red line version is attachment number 2 to your report. That was the changes that was since that March 10th release of that draft. I would say we definitely took a lot of comments in, and we worked through those to create the best bylaw that we could. And as Stephen mentioned, is a living document, so we're not quite done. Just to highlight some of the metrics our communications team put together. Our project page reached over 5,100 people. In the print, Belleville Magazine reached almost 20,000. The community press reached 18,500 households. In Quinte, our ads were viewed by over 26,000 people. So, this advertising that we did well exceeded what is the mandatory requirement by the province. It's way more than we would do for a typical zoning amendment application. Would we love even more outreach and getting people's attention? Of course, the more the better. That's, like I said, that is what helped make this document what it is. And we can only put it out there, right? So what we heard, we definitely received 7 additional official correspondence. We did receive some additional correspondence since the final report. But we did make a number of changes since the last draft was released on January 11th. I'm not going to run through every single one of them, but I did want to touch on just a couple. So one, accessible parking. This was actually through our accessibility committee. So thank you, Councillor Enright Miller and your committee there. Their initial comments were, we need some more accessible parking. So we went back through there. We looked at quite a few different municipalities, what they were doing, the vast majority of which were using the Integrated Accessibility Standards regulation, the IASR. But through our consultation, it was maybe that's not enough. Belleville has an extremely high number of seniors. Accessibility needs are on the rise. So through that, we ran a ton of different scenarios with the numbers. We ended up adding 1% to a lot of them, which maybe seems very minimal, but it actually adds up. But it adds up at a rate that is comparable to the standard across the province. So we feel that these changes will account for the growing need for it in our community. One of the other things that came up as we were looking at the numbers was that another major thing that is often talked about is the accessibility aisle. Often typical requirement is to have one access aisle on a side of a accessibility space. But what we heard was that often people are saying, well, they don't know whether it's on the driver's side, the passenger side, we don't know who needs which side. So we added a provision in there that requires the access aisle on both sides of the parking space, ultimately ensuring that access is available for everybody. Another one that we looked at was I just realized that graphic kind of overlapped there. Parking requirements for accessory dwelling units. Actually, this came up at a meeting. Sorry, apologies for the slide overlapping. I think it was designed for a different screen size. Anyways, at the last year, Bill 23 came out requiring us to permit 3 accessory dwelling units. We held a public information center, and it was actually the landlords, the local Quinte landlords that showed up, and they had comments about requiring parking. So we dived through that. We discussed that with them. We said, you know what, we'll come back through the consolidated zoning bylaw with a proposal based off your comments. And what we reviewed was the amended guidelines that council approved to permit parking reductions. And that's been done through minor variances in the past. And then we took those provisions for how we're supposed to permit that reduction, and we turned it into guidelines or parking provisions. And we've actually included these for a variety of different uses, but we added them in for accessory dwelling units. So the map that's shown there actually demonstrates that. So the star would be a residential property. It's within 400 meters of a school. It's within 100 meters of a public transit stop. And it's within 200 meters of a commercial amenity like a grocery store. So because it's within those 3 categories, or within those 3 parameters, it's not required to have a parking spot for that accessory dwelling unit. One of the biggest issues we hear with affordable housing is the provision for parking requirements. So while we have reduced parking in the zoning bylaw as a whole, we've also provided opportunities for even further reductions in the right locations. Again, reducing minor variance applications and impact on developers and residents. Another one that came up through a number of, or several recent rezonings of the downtown, I'm jumping ahead. September 5th. Let's go back to the public meeting on September 5th, RV provisions that we had a number of residents out to discuss. The big concern was the size restriction on there. So I'd like to officially say that we listened, we heard them, and we've removed the size provisions for that, size, length, and maximum height. We did add a provision that requires a 1 meter setback from property lines. Again, when we went through the hot button issues in the Public Information Center, some of the comments we received were, if we're going to allow for these big RVs, I don't want that right next to my house. I don't want it blocking my window. There were comments about having it right next to their property. So adding that 1 meter setback in there is our way of mitigating that. It's standard for accessory buildings, for example. So we felt like that was an appropriate setback, especially since we're going to allow for as big of RV as you can fit. One other provision that we did include on there was that you had to maintain your required parking space for the dwelling. So yes, you are allowed a large RV, but you still have to provide your required parking space on the property. So again, that will impact street parking and the use of the property as well, because we are trying to maintain front yard landscaping. But we do think that this is a good fit, and like I said, we did take into account a lot of the public's comments. As Stephen mentioned, housing, this is going to provide a lot of opportunities for housing in the city. Whether it's just consolidating our 31 existing residential zones, and that's not counting the hundreds of exception zones that are out there, into 5 newer zones, and those 5 that's including our mobile home one, which is very limited used, and rural residential is very specifically used. that also we expanded the permitted uses, so expanding what's permitted in our low density, for example. No longer do you have to rezone to permit a semi-detached on a property that's, you know, it's wide enough, you get your severance, you don't have to go through that rezoning process now. Additional support for residential intensification, whether that's reduced setbacks, also reducing parking requirements. We introduced mixed-use zoning, so that will allow for more housing in commercial areas. We've revised some of the accessory dwelling unit provisions even further from the last time by recognizing existing accessory buildings, also reducing the setback requirement because we can just rely on the building code, and the building code is really what's important in that sense. So, you know, again, we kind of provided additional relief there. As well as we are looking at additional alternative housing options. And just to kind of touch on that, as Stephen mentioned, it's important to remember this is a living document. You know, this committee is here to make recommendations on amendments to it. So it is a living document. As new things come up, you know, changes will be made. But we're not necessarily going to sit back. You know, as changes happen in the community, we'll bring forward amendments. One of those obviously being housing is a major concern, so we are looking at additional opportunities for that. For the public, we are working on zoning guides, so there's one up here on the screen. We are looking at a whole guidebook for each use, so you know, someone comes in, we can give them individual sheets for it, but we'll have all these available as well. So, you know, visually demonstrating the policies. Other things that we're working on, the urban design guidelines, the development manual, and then the Loyalist secondary plan, all of these will impact this and work in tandem with it. Last year, maybe 2 years ago, we just finished the geospatial strategy for the city. So again, this is integrating our new GIS, so improved mapping for the city. And you know, I think as we roll this out, you know, I think there will be other opportunities for us to educate the public on this. And it'll be much easier because, as Stephen mentioned, we've removed a lot of the language that was a barrier. I learned what a pertinent means, and I think now we have a clear document that is easy to explain to people. So if there are any other questions, that is the end of my presentation.
Yep, Councillor Millette.
Thank you very much, Chair, and through you to Mr. Deming. Congratulations. It's I don't think anybody can underestimate the enormity of this this task, and good on you for seeing it through. I'm sure it's a relief. I guess it's not done until we actually sign off at council, but the end line is in sight. I just have a couple of observations, and first and foremost, I guess through this whole process, I guess what, again, looking back on the enormity and some of the weighty issues that are in this process, I was a little bit surprised that the one that really caught us up was RVs and boats. I mean, who would have thought? But I mean, I'm really pleased to see that we reached a compromise on that, because it shows we listen. My question is on the issue of the rooming house memorandum, and it was, again, a good report. I read it with great interest because, as we know, we have an issue in this municipality and a lot of our other municipalities of rooming houses that are cropping up here and there, and it's a sore point in some neighborhoods. But I see that the recommendation is now that we move away from zoning towards licensing as a means of managing the operation of rooming houses, following in the footsteps of other progressive Ontario municipalities. And I wholeheartedly agree, but my question is, what's the process involved in that now? Because it's not taken care of in the document, and I, in discussions with various planning officials, we're not going to zone people, I think, as we said. We're now going to work on licensing and take it out of the realm of zoning. So I see Mr. Ashton, his finger is poised on the button for his microphone, so whoever can answer my question. What is the process next in regulating or licensing rooming houses?
So I guess whether it was in the zoning bylaw or not, it was always difficult to regulate through the zoning bylaw. So it was very challenging. As we move forward, so you've had lots of high-level discussions with other directors who licensing would fall under corporate services. I think that is why, council, wanted to move forward with the manager to oversee not just property standards, but licensing and parking in a coordinated effort, because I think the future is to sort of look at all of those and to kind of coordinate sort of how to address sort of those issues. Right now it's an issue, but hopefully if we make it very clear what our expectations are, it might not be an issue, but it might be an educational opportunity of what we expect. So maybe it is an opportunity, but I think licensing in the city will play a larger role as we move forward. I know the fire department has some, requests as well, and so this rooming house. So yeah, it will play a bigger and bigger importance, but it's what we have to do, I believe, to sort of address these more complex, complicated issues sort of in a unified way with licensing bylaw and parking altogether.
Okay, through you, if I may, further to my question, and Mr. Ashton, when might we see that process sounds like it's got a few moving parts and different city departments now.
Yeah, so council approved when they approved the budget, they approved the new position for manager. Katie's been very involved in that as well as Brett, so I think they've already worked up a job description. We've contacted HR. Of course, they'll have to do their final evaluation of what the job should entail. It'll be posted, and so I think sort of in that report back in August with the contract workers for bylaw enforcement, there would be a case where that manager, I don't know if it was in the report or the discussion, but that new manager will sort of set the agenda, I guess, and what the resources are required to move forward. So I would see that something in 2025 for budget as well, and increased licensing would occur.
Okay, yep, that gives me a ballpark of when we might expect to see something on that. Thanks very much.
Okay, any other questions to Mr. Deming? Councilor Wright Miller.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I just want to congratulate you, Mr. Demings, and the whole team. This was a daunting task. You guys have done a fabulous job, and sincerely appreciate the accessibility piece, which was absent in all the other bylaws. So we appreciate that very much, and we thank you, and it was a great job by all. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Tom, I just want to express my thanks for all of the work. It was considerable. It's a better way to say it. And thank you for listening around the concerns that were being expressed on the downtown commercial spaces. I think it's been a point of contention for a long period of time. So having it actually adopted as part of the zoning bylaws, I think will help ensure that places like downtown Belleville will continue to be and have the ability to thrive as a commercial space on the walkable spaces throughout, but also afford more housing within the context. We all know in a downtown environment, the more people that live there, then the stronger the downtowns are. Equally so, I want to thank you on the RV boat section of it. I know that in September it had considerable feedback. Is probably the best way to describe it, both at our meeting, but preceding and following. And I think that it demonstrates that when we do get that feedback, that we are listening and that you adjusted in a way I think that will help us still meet the residential demands, but do so in a way that it's not impacting their neighbors. So thank you for that. I know that sometimes all of the feedback that we provide, that as residents, we're not always sure that it's actually being impacted. And I think the difference between what we saw as a draft in September and where we are today, we've moved the yardstick considerably. So thank you for acknowledging and listening as you went through a tremendous amount of work.
Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is great. The comment that you made, Steve. Now, when I teach my students that zoning bylaws get done every 5 years, I can actually say it with a straight face in my class. So that's a good thing. With the Belleville example, but I've been going through a lot of this stuff. I just had a couple of comments, more, I guess, smaller things maybe than others looking at. It looks like we flip-flopped a few times on this one, and it's kind of something I brought up before. It's the front yard depth of 6 meters was 7.5, was 6, then went back to 7.5, then went back to 6. Now it looks like you put it back to 6 again. And I think that's, if we thought the RV caused a problem, if we were to put in the paper that your F-150 isn't gonna fit in your driveway, because it's more than 6 meters long, I think you'd have a lot more people than we had for the RV complaints. 50% of cars bought today are full-size trucks, and they won't fit on a 6 meter. They will just fit, but your bumper, if you have a trailer hitch, will be in the sidewalk or across the property line. So I think that's cascaded already. We see in those north subdivisions where the street parking isn't there, and then people can't park their trucks, their work trucks, in front of their houses, and it's causing a whole bunch of headaches, especially, again, those areas that voted down buses. Now there's nowhere for that. So I think I just think that's a big mistake. I just want to get on there again that I think we should not put it at 6 meters as the minimum.
How about I suggest you pose that as a question, and so Mr. Deming has an opportunity to respond. Well, I don't have a resolution on the floor yet, so we're not into debate. This is still kind of a presentation. So you want to pose some questions, and I'll open it up for comment once I get the resolution on the floor.
Oh, okay. Why would we switch it back to 6 from the 7.5 we had before?
No, through you, Mr. Chair, that's a great question. That was looked at fairly extensively. We had comments that came in from a local planning firm that suggested that we revert it back to the 6. So we said, well, let's take a look at it. We dove through pretty much every rezoning file that we've had over the past, I'd say 4 years that the project's been ongoing. What we found was the vast majority of applications that council have approved were for 6 meter front yard setbacks in new subdivisions. So their point was that that is the direction that modern zoning is going in, is that reduction, pushing it up towards the front, and that was their suggestion. Now, that is a minimum. That does not require that developers, builders build to that minimum. That is that's an open door for them to build. They can do 7.5. They can provide a side yard setback as well that would fit their F-150. They can build a big enough garage as well. So, and then in terms of overlap onto the city right away, typically there is a little bit of space before a sidewalk or a street starts, actual street line. So the likelihood of a ton of complaints is probably not likely. But yes, that is the direction that we've seen over the past few years, and that's what's been approved by council.
Okay. So I basically can't say I disagree.
Well, no, what I'm doing right now, since Mr. Deming's doing a presentation, treating it more as a deputation, so if there's questions of Mr. Deming, then I'll allow that, and then I'll get the motion on the floor, and then you're welcome to
Okay, I have
to
one other
provide
question
your comments.
about a different topic, if I
Yeah,
could.
yeah, absolutely.
So it's regarding the geospatial stuff, and we talked before the meeting. So I'm concerned that we're a lot of the bylaw boundaries, the zones, are determined by the watershed of our creeks and rivers. And I know the watershed data that you currently have is out of date. So I'm concerned that we're making a lot of zoning boundary choices that is on information that's not correct. And I'm just concerned about how, if there's a provision to fix that after or when the watershed mapping is better.
I can provide a brief comment. I think Stephen might have something to add to it as well. The zoning itself was based off of the official plan designation. You know, that's essentially the official plan is the hand, the zoning is the hammer. You know, it's the implementing tool of it, right? So the official plan designates it as EP. The zoning bylaw zones it as EP. So that's your, you know, that's the, I guess, straightforward answer. Now, that designation, that's probably the actual thing we need to discuss to your question. And maybe Stephen wants to jump in on that, because I was not directly involved in the official plan project, but in terms of the mapping, and going back to what I said previously, is monitoring it in future updates. So any future updates through official plan updates, secondary plans, that would then be implemented through zoning bylaw updates.
So, yeah, I recognize that, yeah, some of the mapping has been changing. Some of it's identified, some of it hasn't been identified. I know that the Conservation Authority is, you know, looking at funding for other projects. We asked them to prioritize the Potters Creek floodplain, which is extremely big, and it's in the middle of our secondary plan update for, you know, Loyalist or West Belleville secondary plan. I think, again, it's probably, whichever route we choose is probably not necessarily perfect. I think it'll deal with monitoring. So is there a way that if it's not working, you know, and there's that adjustment of the, you know, the zone, you know, could we include that as a technical part of it? Maybe. But I think also part of this is, so when I came here, I was like, so where's the logbook of all the things that we've had issues with, sort of thing, written in the margins? There wasn't any, but, you know, Mr. Pensions graciously agreed to be the official recorder of sort of those issues. So I think as we see, we can just, yeah, move forward, and, you know, sometimes not having the perfect answer, and sometimes you could do it one way and it won't be perfect. You do it the other way, it's not to be perfect. But I think it's just monitoring and focusing on what those needs are, sort of thing. So, yeah.
So what would be the, I guess then the recourse? So if, and again, because some of my neighbors, you know, suddenly on the new zoning plan, their houses are in an environmentally protected zone, as where it used to be a residential zone. So I know they're existing use, so it's not that big of a deal, but actually, you know, if a person applies to get a pool or build a fence, we have to go through an extra level of approval now through the Conservation Authority to pay to get that approved when it's put into the ER zone.
Yeah, and sometimes they still have to do that, whether it's residential or not, or it's an environmental zone, because they might go, hey,
these would
that's
be
on
outside
our,
the zone, but yeah.
But that's on our unidentified environmental mapping. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what I would personally like to see is us moving forward to sort of more concrete boundaries that are accurate and more reflective, and maybe that might have to be a priority in the future. But I think, again, maybe it's a technical sort of amendment that, you know, based on the water or the floodplain, we can make those adjustments as we go forward, sort of thing. And I think we have had those discussions as well. So.
And so what, if somebody got a survey done of their property, which established the correct water line, would the city be able to update it, or would we have to wait for a whole new official plan before that boundary changes?
Well, then you get into, we went through this process with the Potters Creek floodplain mapping, and there's all kinds of different interpretations of what that should be based on what events and stuff. So it's not, floodline mapping is becoming more and
No,
more
I understand, yeah.
complex.
But if it was,
and-
no, even if the Queenie Conservation, if I go to get a building permit, I have to get a survey done.
Yeah.
And they determine where the line is, and it will change
Yeah.
based on the current line.
Yeah, so my preference, and we probably look at it, is just to see if we could, if there were sort of general provisions that would allow us, like, you know, like, to move that a little bit based on, like, it would have to be delegated to sort of senior staff, so, yeah.
All right.
They're probably not,
Sorry, just add to an example to that. We did have a resident approach us about the zoning of their property, it being EP. They had mapped out with Queenie Conservation's assistance a developable area. So we amended the zoning through this process because they did reach out to us. We were able to do that. So that was adequate justification for it.
Yeah, I'm just concerned
despite
about all the other
EP
residents who
in the
don't know
official-
that. Is it too late, I guess, for them to change?
I would say
their-
as part of this exact project,
Yeah.
probably, but, yeah, I mean, we did try to work as, you know, with whoever reached out to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions to Mr. Deming? No? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I have a resolution, I'll get it on the floor, and then I'll open up for any debate or whatever. That the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That the City of Belleville Consolidated Zoning Bylaw consisting of text and schedules be approved, and that zoning bylaws 10-245, 2076-80, and 3014 as amended be repealed in their entirety, and that this bylaw shall come into force and take effect on the day of the final passing thereof. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Millet. Any questions or comments? Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I was going to do a comment on the last round, but I think you correctly pointed out that we didn't have it on the floor, so now that we do, just wanted to congratulate staff, Tom in particular, for the immense amount of work that this took, and for the real focus on the public input aspect of it, you know, the RV question, backyard hens, you know, some of these things that, you know, weren't things that were top of mind for many of us, but that were expressed through public feedback, ended up in the document. I think that's very important. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on is the fact that the language had been significantly adapted and that the zones had been reduced in a way to make it much more easy to use. And when we look at the applications that we received, even just tonight, a lot of them are owner applicant led. They're not done through consultants and planning agencies. And so I think it's important that it empowers people to be able to do more of this stuff on their own without having to hire outside agencies because of the simplicity of the legibility of the document, and then also the pared back nature of the zones. I think that's going to be very important for residents who are just looking to do, you know, simple things on their property and have in the past found it's very difficult to, you know, get a shed built or whatever else. This is really going to help a lot of people out. So greatly appreciate it. I know that it's been said a number of times that this is a living document, but if you look at how long the last documents were living, I think it's worth noting that this is going to have an impact for decades to come, and you've done a fantastic job. So credit to staff, and look forward to hopefully getting this into operation soon.
Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, well, just, I want to just say thank you, first of all, to Director Ashton for leading this and the leadership he provides to the department, and then certainly Mr. Deming for taking the lead on this project. You know, from a planning perspective, there's been a couple of monumental tasks that have been completed by the planning staff when it comes to the official plan and now the zoning bylaw. And as Director Ashton points out, you know, usually the sequence is much longer and dragged out. So again, and I know I hit this a nail on the head quite a bit, but I'm going to continue to pound it, is that here's another example where the City of Belleville and the staff are being aggressive, being innovative, and working hard to make it easier for growth and development to occur. I grow tired, and I still hear it, of municipalities being gatekeepers to growth. And when you look at this particular zoning bylaw and the innovation that it includes, not only is it just simply a consolidation, you know, it reflects the past in terms of some of the historical development patterns, new uses, new terms, strategies, tools, simple language, user-friendly tables, and then to get on to talk about, you know, the transformation of dwelling terms, increased flexibility within residential zones, modernized parking, introduction of mixed-use zones, accessibility, parking requirements, expanded home occupations, and then, you know, the more smaller things, backyard hens and RVs and all the rest of it. And then, you know, Mr. Deming talks on the fact that there's manuals and guidelines coming behind these. Again, to operationalize it, to make it much easier for your large-scale developers or the smaller ones that are looking to add to the housing component within our community, to be able to have the tools to get the applications in front and get them approved in a timely fashion. So there's no gatekeepers in this building. This is all about people trying to get growth moving forward in a very fast fashion. I also want to say thank you to the staff for implementing the community engagement piece. You know, another thing that we hear from time to time is governments don't listen. And you know, the one graphic that was put up there that Mr. Deming showed, the length and the time that was taken to do the community engagement, and all the ways that there was communication out there so people were aware. This was heavily extensive in terms of consultation and input. And again, being receptive to the community and allowing the community to engage is critical, because at the end of the day, the document works best if we've all had a say in how it's formed. So thank you very much. I know that takes a lot of work, and siphoning through all the comments to get to the true nuggets of what you need to include. So there is a lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you very much, and you know, certainly to the committee for working through this and asking those questions, you know, to get where we are today. This is quite exciting. So with that, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to information matters. Resolution of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment monitoring report dated March 4th, 2024 be received. Councillor Millette, Councillor Brown, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. General business. Anything general business? No, I think we did quite a bit. Move adjournment. Mr. Fenton and Mr. Jennings, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.